It happened during the spring of 2021. I was 24 years old at the time and living far from home while attending college in another state. Spring break was coming up, and I decided to drive back to visit my family instead of flying. I've always preferred long road trips, even when they get exhausting. The drive usually takes about 2 days, mostly through empty highways and long stretches of nothing. I left early Tuesday morning, earlier than I had planned, which put me ahead of schedule. I didn't bother planning exact stops. I just figured I'd find somewhere to sleep, but I felt too tired to continue. After nearly 10 hours on the road with only quick stops for gas and food, it was already getting dark. Around 8 p.m., I pulled into a gas station in what felt like the middle of nowhere. I opened my phone and searched for the closest hotel. To my relief, there was one less than half an hour away. The directions led me off the highway and down a narrow road behind the gas station. The road looked old and poorly maintained with barely any streetlights. No other cars passed me. After a few minutes, I drove through a tiny town that looked frozen in time. At the very end of the road sat the hotel. The building was small and outdated, matching the rest of the town. The parking lot was completely empty. I grabbed my bags and walked inside. The lobby lighting was unusually dim, and the silence was unsettling. No TV noise, no voices, nothing. No one was at the front desk at first. I stood there waiting, listening to the quiet hum of the building. After a short while, a woman appeared from a hallway behind the desk. She looked surprised to see me, almost startled, before quickly composing herself and checking me in. She handed me a key and told me my room was at the far end of the hallway. I thanked her and walked down the long, narrow corridor. Once inside my room, I didn't bother unpacking. I sat on the small couch, scrolling through my phone, letting the exhaustion catch up to me. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep. I was jolted awake by a loud knock. My heart jumped as I sat up, disoriented. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was just after 11 p.m. Confused, I walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was empty. I stepped out and looked both ways, waiting, listening. Nothing. The silence felt heavier than before. I convinced myself I must have imagined it and went back inside. I showered, got ready for bed, set my alarm for the morning, and tried to sleep. Sometime later, I was woken up again by aggressive banging on the door. This time it was unmistakable. I rushed to the door and opened it immediately again. No one. The hallway lights cast long shadows, but there was nowhere anyone could have gone. That's when unease turned into fear. I walked down to the lobby to tell the woman at the front desk what was happening. She listened, clearly confused, then told me something that made my stomach drop. I was the only guest staying there that night. I laughed it off awkwardly and returned to my room, but the thought wouldn't leave my mind. I locked the door carefully and lay in bed staring into the darkness, trying to calm myself. Eventually, I reached for my phone to distract myself. The glow from the screen lit up the room just enough for me to see movement. Someone was standing in the corner near my bed. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They were just there, watching. Panic took over. I jumped out of bed and rushed toward the door, fumbling with the locks. The moment I started unlocking them, I heard footsteps charging toward me from behind. I flung the door open and ran down the hallway as fast as I could. The woman at the front desk looked up in shock as I burst into the lobby. Her eyes widened as she looked past me. A man came running out behind me. She immediately grabbed the phone and called the police. But the man bolted straight out the front door and disappeared into the darkness. He didn't get into a car. He just ran. When the police arrived, they searched the hotel, but there was very little footage. Only 2 cameras worked, and neither showed much. The only thing they could confirm was that someone had entered my room while I was at the front desk earlier. I packed my things and left that same night. To this day, I still don't know who that man was, how long he'd been there, or what he wanted. But I know one thing for sure. That night was the most terrifying experience of my life. It began with something so ordinary that I didn't even question it. Every morning followed the same routine. Wake up, get out of bed, walk downstairs, fill a tall glass with tap water, drink it. No thinking required. Just habit. That morning was no different, until the water went down wrong. I choked hard, coughing violently, my lungs burning as I leaned over the counter. I set the glass down quickly and turned away, pounding my chest until my breathing finally steadied. When I turned back around, the glass was gone. I didn't move. My eyes scanned the kitchen slowly, my body frozen in place. The room felt disturbed, not loud, not dramatic, just subtly wrong, like something had passed through the space without making a sound. I stepped backward, and my heels struck something solid, the glass. It tipped over with a dull clatter against the floor. I picked it up with shaking hands, staring at it like it didn't belong in this world. I called my sister later and told her what happened. She laughed it off, said I probably knocked it over while coughing. I accepted that explanation. I wanted to, but the strange moments didn't stop. Small things. Objects not where I left them. Lights behaving oddly. Each incident easier to ignore than the last, until the night I woke up screaming inside my own head. 2:58 a.m. The bedroom lights were on. I sat up, confused, my eyes burning from the sudden brightness. Power surge, I thought. That's all this is. Then I noticed my bedroom door was open. That alone wouldn't have scared me. What terrified me was the glass of water sitting in the middle of the upstairs hallway. Half full. I hadn't put it there. I stepped into the hall, crouched down, and lifted it. The glass was smeared with fingerprints. Too many. Overlapping. Like hands had been fighting over it. I dropped it instantly. Water soaked into the carpet. My stomach tightened. At the top of the stairs was another glass, half full. Another one, halfway down. A trail. That's when I knew someone was inside my house. I reached for my phone. It wasn't in my pocket. I always slept with it there. A buzzing sound echoed from downstairs. My phone, on the kitchen floor, spinning in tight circles as it vibrated. I picked it up, ready to call the police. But a notification caught my eye. New photo uploaded to iCloud. The image loaded. It was me, asleep. Taken at 2:57 a.m., I called 911. They told me to hide. I locked myself in the bathroom. Then doors started slamming upstairs, one by one, methodical, searching. Then a door slammed downstairs. Too fast. Impossible. The dispatcher spoke again, but her voice was coming from outside the bathroom door. The intruder was using my phone, imitating the operator. The handle rattled. Lights flickered violently. She begged, then laughed. Then the front door burst open, and a real voice shouted, "Police!" I stayed silent. Eventually, real officers found me. No evidence. Psych evaluation. No one believed me. I moved out. Months passed. Nothing happened. Until tonight. I skipped checking my cameras. That was my mistake. Earlier footage showed me leaving for work. Then, 30 seconds later, motion triggered again. My empty bedroom. Lights flicked on. Someone appeared, standing perfectly still, hands covering their face. They didn't move for hours, until 30 seconds before I got home. They dropped to their knees, rolled onto the bed I'm lying on now. I can't move, and I know they're still here.
I worked as a live-in butler at a large countryside manor owned by an elderly man of considerable wealth. His name was Mr. Gander Benson. He was stern, quiet, and not particularly warm, but he was never cruel. In fact, he treated everyone on his staff with a level of respect that made the long hours worthwhile. I had served him for many years, as had most of the household. Some of the maids and the chef had been there even longer than I had. When you work for someone that long, they stop feeling like just an employer. Mr. Benson was old, very old, and we all knew his time was limited. Still, every one of us did our best to make his remaining years comfortable. It felt like the least we could do. Every Christmas, Mr. Benson would leave the manor to visit his family in the city. Almost without fail, he would return the morning after Christmas in a foul mood. I suspected his family spent the holiday urging him to move into a retirement home, though I never asked. My place was to serve, not to pry. That year was different. When Mr. Benson returned on Boxing Day, he surprised us all by bringing gifts. Traditionally, Boxing Day was meant for servants, a day off accompanied by a small present. Though the tradition had long faded, Mr. Benson always honored it by giving us the day free. Usually, the gift was simply money. This time, it wasn't. He insisted we open the presents in front of him. Inside each neatly wrapped box was a gold container filled with luxury chocolates. The maids smiled. A few even gasped with delight. Everyone thanked him sincerely. I thanked him too, though I knew I would never taste mine. I was severely allergic to chocolate. Telling him would have ruined the moment, so instead I decided to pass the gift along. On my day off, I drove into the city and stopped by a homeless shelter holding a food drive. People were donating practical things, canned food and dry goods. I placed the box of chocolates on the table. The volunteer hesitated, asking if I was sure. I told her it had been a gift and that I couldn't eat it anyway. I spent the rest of the day enjoying myself, shopping, watching a Christmas movie, treating myself to dinner. I even bought a couple bottles of expensive whiskey on sale. It was one of the better holidays I'd had in years. That evening, I returned to the manor. The moment I stepped inside, I saw one of the maids lying on the floor. It was Clara, one of the newer hires. At first, I assumed she'd overindulged in holiday drinks. I approached her, annoyed more than concerned. I shook her gently. She didn't respond. When I touched her forehead, my blood ran cold. She was freezing. I checked her pulse. There was none. I shouted for the others, my voice echoing through the halls. No one answered. Panic settled in as I moved from room to room. Every servant lay still. Every single one. The police arrived within the hour. As I gave my statement, I overheard an officer speaking quietly behind me. He mentioned poisoning another shelter earlier that day. Then they found a note in Mr. Benson's bedroom. It was signed by him. The officer read it aloud. Mr. Benson wrote that he had chosen to end his life on his own terms, that he could not bear the thought of dying alone, that his servants had made his final years meaningful, and he wished to be with them even beyond death. He admitted the chocolates were poisoned. He claimed it was painless. I don't remember much after that. The police ruled it a murder-suicide. No one believed I didn't know. No one believed I wasn't involved. Sometimes neither do I, because I was the only one who didn't eat the chocolate.